Hello all, welcome to Vinnie's Voice. We're sitting down today with the 410 Safe Sleep Site team. We have with us Blaze Kenyon, who's the program/site director today, and Sarah Kosky, who's the case manager here. Now there is quite a origin story to this Safe Sleep Site, Safe Sleep Sites in general, but I think first, your origin stories. What brought you to working here, both with St. Vincent de Paul and with an unhoused population? Blaze, you want to lead it off?
Sure. I started as a, what did they call us? I believe it was an urban campsite monitor for the City of Eugene.
Okay.
And I was in charge of, alongside Cameron Stewart, who is now a shift lead here, we were in charge of 13th and Chambers, so the campsite there.
If I remember that campsite correctly, this last winter, it flooded.
It flooded really bad, and we had to get, they were just delivering bark down there with, they'd order it from Lane County, or Lane Forest.
Just trying to keep the tents above the water.
Yeah, basically, we had to help shuffle people around and stuff, but it got pretty muddy.
What was involved in being, what did you call it? Urban
Campsite monitor.
Campsite monitor. What was that role like?
It's more just trying to ensure that the people there were following whatever rules the city had discussed when they opened it for them,
Okay.
which is keeping their tent in I believe it was a 12 by 12 space that they had sectioned out with flagging stuff. Nothing exceeding that, like spilling out, not in excess of trash, just stuff like that. It wasn't too
Keep
in-depth.
it tidy.
Mm-hmm.
Was there maybe get along with your neighbor kind of thoughts going on?
Generally, but they generally did that themselves.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Sarah, what brought you into this world?
It was just a little bit of divine intervention. So I had worked a decade and a half in nonprofit leadership and in large-scale philanthropy and creative consulting. And the job I had before this, I was an executive director of a nonprofit, and we had several focuses, one being veterans, the other being youth culture and outreach, wildfire relief, and the fourth being homeless support and advocacy. So we were running some disaster operations with some heat domes where we were providing water and electrolytes to the unhoused. And I got to meet, the Whitebird team and a whole lot of other teams and really got to see people working in the trenches and how easy it was for me to be behind a desk and, be on Instagram and just, do my emails compared to the people in the trenches. And so when I decided to leave the work that I was doing in leadership, I called up Roxanne and Bethany at St. Vincent de Paul and said, hey, I don't want to be a talking head. I don't want to be a person that can just go to a camp on a Monday night and hand out pizza and go home to, my place of privilege. I want to be in the trenches.
Right.
And I ended up here.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And the origin of 410, I think, coincides with both of yours transition into this particular world with St. Vincent de Paul. Eugene, of course, is very cognizant of the homelessness, the unhoused crisis in our community, and safe sleep sites designated it's okay to be in this space. We have amenities here, we have structure here. There's several in our community, two of which St. Vinnie's has, but 410 came after some big stuff was happening downtown with parks. So you mentioned 13th and Chambers, but Washington Jefferson Street, following the pandemic, was a concern in our community, and 410 was part of helping with that. I know, Blaze, you were part of, at the end there after 13th and Chambers, inviting Washington Jefferson Street residents to come to this space. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, that was a bit of an odd one. So I was placed down at Section 0 with Cameron after 13th and Chambers had been shut down, for better of a word, but they had transitioned about 90% of the population there to the hoop or the dome down at Dusk to Dawn.
Right.
And then the remainders were all placed in Washington Jefferson Park, wherever there was space. So new spaces were made for those people because there were not allowed new campers.
Right, right.
And so I transitioned from working alongside the city to now I'm doing outreach right next to them, like a day turnover. So I went down with Kayla Pollard and Amber Fitch, and we did our outreach there, and I believe Sarah was there at least one day.
One day, yeah.
And it was hectic. It was a lot to do in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I believe, I would have to clarify with Rick, but I believe it was like 186 tents were there still by the end of it.
Wow.
So it was a lot.
Absolutely. I imagine your work with the city and being that urban support specialist allowed you some, I wouldn't say leeway, but a little bit of an in with the folks that were there. You are something of a known commodity.
It did a lot. There's clients here that were down at 13th and Chambers. I've got specific individuals that, I used to see them every day, and just, I'd be talking, hanging out with them, helping them pick up trash around their site, clean up their area. So it's really interesting to have that transfer. And so I know that Rick has that twofold, because he was the shift lead down at Washington Jefferson, and now he's my shift lead on site here for
Right.
days. So he has an enormous amount of knowledge about the clients here, and history built up with them, helping them stay in compliance with the city's rules.
How much would you say that relationship building has translated to being able to support folks on that next step?
I think that there is a significant barrier to getting the unhoused willing to accept help from outside agencies or other people, and you have to have somebody willing to kind of accept that. They have to be able to take your word, right? So
Trust.
yeah, there's a trust building, and it takes a while. Some people, they feel like the system has failed them so many times for so long that there's no real point in reaching out. They're just gonna have to struggle their own way.
Right.
And so a lot of that is kind of breaking down that barrier and opening them up to, getting help from the Alliance. We have people come down from there once a week, sometimes more, and they come and, they help our clients immensely. Or Whitebird was just here today, for several hours. So it's a lot of work, and it's constant.
Right. Relationship, no matter who you're in relationship with, it is work. Even the most positive, loving relationship in the world is not magic. It takes work. So with our individuals, what I'm hearing is many are discouraged and disillusioned with the system that they are a part of. And would it be fair to say too many have given up on getting out of the deep pit that some of them are in?
I think that it's more of they're at a loss. I don't think they even know where to start.
Fair enough. So thinking about 410, that first, I step through that door with what? Maybe everything I own? What does that feel like? How do you greet that person? What's the first day? I trust you enough to come inside, now what?
So there's an intake process. They sign up. They're explained all the features and the amenities and the rules of the site. They're taken back to whatever tent they will be staying in. They're given all the supplies, so the bedding, sleeping bag, their totes to keep their belongings in, all that kind of stuff. And then if they want to, they're welcome to shower. We have showers open pretty much 24/7, although generally after hours is for people that have jobs.
Right.
There's the restrooms in the smoking community area out back. We have the community rest area out here. People can come and sit down and talk. And then dinners every day between 5 and 6 p.m.
So acclimating to a new environment, a new space.
Right. I think it's actually pretty surprising how many people will go through the intake process, and then they'll see somebody that they know, and they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know you were here." And that happens all the time.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's, they build little communities and friendships and stuff, and they have that, at least they know somebody.
Yeah.
That helps a lot, actually.
Absolutely. Thinking about how much time it takes to build trust and relationship, and thinking about that translation to case management.
Yeah.
There's the day-to-day, but then there's the next step, that hard work, that hard work of how do I get out of this place that I'm at. What does that relationship look like? Time frame. What are you doing in those first couple of days versus weeks and months with someone?
It's really based on reading an individual's personality, and we're blessed with, the work that Cameron and Rick and Blaze had done at the beginning, because they've had this long-standing history and know a lot about the backgrounds of many of the individuals coming in. So they know if that, there's been trauma in the past, or, if there's been different things, so that the help that we can tailor, we have, I think, a better foundation because of the park ambassadors who came here than just really opening up the site. But, it's really, you have to read personalities, and I think the important thing is to just be quiet and listen and allow the individuals to come and just show up every day and be a steady presence that they feel like they can trust. And one of the things Blaze taught us, and I came in cold, like I had no
Right.
understanding of
First time in the trenches,
right? First time in the trenches, had never had I've had trauma informed training and different things because of crisis management with natural disasters, right? But I dealt with trees and forests and rivers and lakes. I didn't have to deal with humans with a heartbeat and who had
Right.
feelings and emotions. So Blaze really trained us, make sure you memorize their name. Make sure that you memorize things about them that matter and different things. And so that's what I really tried to do at the beginning. And then there's individuals who are just gregarious, right? And immediately will tell you everything about their life and what they need. And those were the people that I could start working with immediately. And a lot of the individuals that came from 13th and Chambers and Washington Jefferson, first thing we had to do up front was health. Like help with stabilizing health. People came in with walking pneumonia. They came in with MRSA. They came in with, a whole lot of lists of things that I didn't even know were capable of a human having, right? And through Love and Care, through our partnerships with the Alliance, they actually brought, a medical clinic to come. So we had a nurse or a doctor on site helping, and just the healing that we saw immediately was really, really encouraging. And then, I had an individual who it took 4 months of me just saying good morning every morning for him to finally trust me enough to do a front door assessment, which is the ability for him to get Section 8 in housing. And in that front door assessment, I've learned that he had a long-term disability and pain in his stomach that he had never advocated for. And so we were able to get him a case manager a medical case manager, OHP, and get him to a doctor to be seen. But it was just that he didn't think that someone would be willing or excited to help him with that. So, it ebbs and flows.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
4 months, huh?
4 months.
4 months of saying hello.
And good morning. Every morning. I would make sure every time I saw him, good morning in his name. And that's all I ever talked about until he came and said, hey, I'm looking to get housing. I heard you can do front door assessments. And it was in that moment where we're sitting together and having that intimate conversation of housing that I got to learn about other things about his past and what he truly needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That reminds me a little bit of what you were talking about in those urban environments. Would you say that indoors versus outdoors, it's time? It takes a significant amount of time and heart investment to build those relationships.
I think I think that, at least in my experience, it's very dehumanizing to be labeled and stereotyped, it just comes off as really callous, and you have to, it's a difficult thing to train yourself not to do. I think that it's very easy to just say, oh, there's another homeless person. It is.
Yeah.
Oh, there's another person on the corner. How do you translate that into what is that? Well, how did that person get there?
Right.
So I'll drive around now after working here for 10 months or so, and I'll see people that I know from they were either in the program and they were exited due to behavioral reasons or whatever, or they left on their own, or I've met them down at Dusk to Dawn, and I'll just see them wandering around and I'll say, oh, there's that person. And it's not, I use their name.
There's a name. I was
There's
just
a
thinking
name
that.
associated to it. It's a background, it's a cause, right?
Yeah.
Something happened to put him there. And so I know from personal experience that when you're homeless, it's very difficult to admit that it could be your fault. But even if it is, that doesn't mean that you should be able to, be forgotten or be pushed to the side. It's not always in your control, but getting help should be an opportunity for you.
Absolutely. Who helped you in your past?
Literally nobody.
Oh.
I had just gotten out of the Navy and I was going to college, and so the government shutdown happened, and my GI Bill, I didn't get any of the money from that. So I went into crippling debt trying to pay for my colleges so I didn't have to roll my courses back. I couldn't take some of those classes the next semester. So I was paying for all of it out of pocket. I was paying for my house, who I lived with like 4 other people in Hawaii.
A very expensive place to live.
Very expensive place to live, and then 2 of my roommates ended up getting deployed again. They were still in the military, and then my other one bailed on our lease to move in with his girlfriend. So I was stuck paying a $4,300 rent bill by myself, and so I ended up living out of my car for a year and a half in Hawaii, all by myself. And then all my friends left, and I didn't have anybody.
Wow.
And so it was just a survive till the next day, you know, like I was still going to college the entire time. I had the GI Bill, which was paying for my food and paying for my car and everything and my classes, so it just turned into, I just have to get through this. I just have to keep going, and then once I'm done with college, I'll figure something else out.
Right.
And so I was just, you know, I didn't have anything. I didn't know what resources were available. I didn't want to admit that it was an issue. So I did my laundry on base. I showered at the gym. I, lived out of my car. I did all my homework. Every day I would go to Starbucks and do all my homework there.
Nobody realized it for a year and a half.
No, I think I did my best to make sure people didn't know.
Right.
Right, there's a certain level of shame that I felt. I felt like I failed, even though it was well outside of my control.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, it's hard, it's a stigma.
Absolutely. Would you say that is translated to how you're able to look and talk to and remember names of humans today?
I think so. When I was younger in high school, I did mission trips down to San Francisco to help at the shelters and stuff, and part of that was our youth pastor was really really adamant about us just going and talking and listening. He was just listen to them. You don't just go listen, and they would tell you their story about what happened. You'd give them a pair of socks or something, and then they'd just tell you their whole story. And it's just a matter of it doesn't really matter what labels or what stereotypes you put on people. Most people here, I think, just want to listen.
Yeah.
Just want somebody to listen. So it's more than just letting them stay here.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that the really cool thing about a safe sleep site is we listen and we have the time to listen, right? Sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's 10 minutes, sometimes it's 2 hours. And it really depends on the day and what our bandwidth is. But we listen with solution because there's so many different partnerships and there's so many different resources that we have that we can take the little, gems that we hear and say, okay, well, you might have lost your wallet on the bus. Well, I have this form and we can replace your ID. And this is what we can do. The first main goal was to make sure that everyone had Oregon Health Plan. And then, I would be calling because I don't even want to take care of my own self when it comes to medical insurance, right? I wish I had my own case manager. Seriously, I pray for it every night. But thinking about I'm newly settled, I'm starting to get healthy, I got OHP, okay, that's a win. Now I have to stay on the phone with Pacific Source for an hour and a half trying to figure out how to track down a primary care provider. I don't want to do that, right? And so there's individuals like myself or other people when they have time where we put that investment in, and when they see that we'll take that phone call or we'll actively look for some sort of solution, that builds a lot of trust and rapport. There's this really cool story of a gentleman who just moved in, and he was supposed to go do his fitness test to be a wildland firefighter. Well, in order to be a wildland firefighter, you need special specific boots, right? And his crew didn't have it where you could pre-purchase the boots. You had to find your own boots, and those boots are very expensive, right? And so I was like, I'm gonna, this is the first working with jobs. I was like, I got this. I won't fail you, right? And so I'm calling the Bureau of Land Management and Oregon Department of Forestry, being like, hey, you have some extra boots, and everybody's like, who is this crazy girl, right? And no boots anywhere. And it gets to be the night before his test, and I literally drive to Baker's Boots a half hour before they close, and I'm like, do you have a size? Do you have boots? I don't care what it costs, we just gotta get it. And he's like, hold on, let me see. And he had a pair of Danners in the back. that had only been worn once, and he gave them to me.
Mm.
And so we brought the boots back to the site, and the guy had them. And just that kind of effort, like, spread throughout the community. And they were like, wow, this girl's the real deal. And, like, you know, this team's the real deal. They genuinely are looking out for us. And so it's, like, different kind of, like, connections and you know, I call them little miracles, right? But it's the points in which the need is met with some sort of compassion that has really propelled us forward here.
Absolutely. That's a
Yeah.
beautiful story. Other thoughts like that, you say small miracles, the term I use is small wins. Because oftentimes, especially dealing with unhoused individuals, we only have two things we get to celebrate. We got you a house and a job.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, there's a spectrum of positives that happen from 0 to 10. So I'm thinking about the humans you serve. You've built that trust. What are those small wins that start that momentum going positive for those individuals?
A lot of individuals, you know, because we have showers on site, it's huge, right? That really sets us apart from a lot of, you know, groups where, you know, you have this collective and people are getting reintegrated into society. But now, I mean, we have laundry cards, so you get clean clothes. You have a shower every day if you want it. You have case management, you know, 8 hours a day available to you. You have partners like DHS and Whitebird and all of this. But we also do, we build resumes, we print resumes here, we help individuals with Indeed and how to apply for jobs in Indeed. And we've learned that the ecosystem of the economy here in Eugene is so much different now after COVID, right? And so the way of like submitting a letter of introduction and having this like huge 3-page resume is not, people just want a piece of paper with your name, your phone number, and did you work once in your life, right? So, you know, there are some individuals here who were so scared that like, oh, well, maybe I had gone to prison for 5 years and I can't justify this amount of time. And nowadays, we really have some really cool second chance employers here in town. And so we partnered with sponsors who gave us a long list of second chance employers. We have temp agencies who've worked with us before and saying, you know, this is what we want to do. We have construction workers and landscape individuals who come to our site and say, you know, hey, I'd like to employ this many people, you know, like we'll work on independent contracting, all of this. And that's happened. But we've also created resumes that aren't just work or professional based resumes, but character based resumes, which is like a completely different genre.
That's a new
right?
thing. I have
Completely
only recently heard about that. So tell me about a character resume.
Character resume is because I've learned that if you can just bring a piece of paper and show that you are like, you want the job and you want to show up. I have been making these resumes based on character qualities and personality traits of the individual. Like, you know, I'll notice that we have certain individuals that every morning they wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go take a walk or go to the library or do something. I know they're punctual and I know they're early morning risers. And so we've made some resumes just based on the content of the character of the resident. And it's been working. Like, we've got someone employed at IHOP based on that, someone employed at Carl's Jr. based on that. And so it was just a very interesting experiment that seems to have been going really well.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So if I hear the transition, there's the trust building at every level, but certainly at the beginning.
Yes.
To even come indoors is a statement of trust. Then there's a stabilization, which it sounds like health is a huge component of that. Your physical health, and connecting to those providers. At that point, are folks really thinking, what do I do next? Is there that next step in their head, or are we prompting for that?
I think a lot of that is kind of peer support. I think that we are at, over 40% of our residents are employed? Is
Yeah.
that still true?
Plus or minus. So right now we're at 29% that are employed full-time. We also have residents who have like small jobs. We didn't include that number. And then it shifts kind of like a 10% up or down at any given time. But yeah, it's an amazing number.
So 30 to 40% are.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then, you know, you have people seeing that and they're thinking, oh, well, these people can do it. Why can't I?
Yes.
So can I. they have the same support I'm getting.
Mm.
And then they can, use that. And so a lot of what we do here, and like to allow guests to stay, the rules is just like positive reinforcement. We want them to keep their tent orderly. We provide them the things to do that, and then we check on them 3 times a day.
Mm.
So 2 of those are just welfare checks. We want to make sure that they're okay, or that they're feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the first one is, how is your tent looking? Do you have a lot of bad habits showing?
Mm.
And so it's keeping them organized, and I think that's really helping with being punctual.
Right.
That it's at the same time every day. Can you get up before that and straighten up a little bit?
Mm.
It's the same standards every time. Can I be consistent?
Mm.
And so a lot of that positive reinforcement and good habit forming kind of coincides with some of that job searching.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we also recently, I think last month, we did the top 5 best tents.
Aww.
And so every time we go and do a tent check, I have a little check sheet, and we'll grade them based on how well it is, how organized it is. Does it have like personal flair? Are they consistent in keeping it that way?
Personal flair. I
Yeah.
love that.
And so, because this is their home, they should be able to decorate it a little bit to make it feel like their home.
Right.
And so we had a lot of, once the word spread, the amount of like good tents went up dramatically, and we didn't even say that.
Well-decorated tents.
Well decorated tents.
Yeah,
Even.
and we didn't even say there was a reward. We just kind of started doing it. And so I believe Michelle Pollard or Robin from the service station is working on contacting and working alongside local businesses to get like gift cards and stuff, and we can give those to the winners. And I think that'd be really cool to incentivize. That's just another positive reinforcement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that transition from the street through trust, coming indoors, finding that stabilization, finding your health,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and then building community, both with the staff and outside providers, but within the community as well. That is just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
They're seeing one another succeed. Do they celebrate each other's wins?
All the time. I mean, it's
I mean, they
dependent
throw
on
like birthday parties for each other. And
They
stuff.
do.
Literally go buy cakes and stuff for each
And
other.
diabetic cakes, mind you. The cake that they got, this guy was diabetic, and it's a whole nother story of how we had to track down insulin for him and all of these things, right? Another miracle. But 2 residents drove all around town just to get him a diabetic cake so his sugars wouldn't spike. Like, it was their entire mission for that day. And they were there as we were cutting it and handing it out and telling everybody, like, here's your cake, wish him happy birthday. And yeah, it was pretty fun.
That is awesome. And you're implementing some new fun things, if I remember, as well. More community building. Very intentional.
With Roxanne's assistance, we have recently got a pretty high quality projector, and we have a projector screen on order. So we just took it on its first premiere and watched a movie with the community, and it turned out really well. Sarah provided popcorn, and another staff provided soda for everybody, and it was pretty cool.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Like,
Movie, soda, and popcorn. What is more normal than that?
and then, but I think for me, like, okay, so I get really emotional and like cry, like when I'm supposed to laugh, right? But like literally, but so we're watching this comedy, right? And I'm not the barista. I'm like the hospitality girl, handing out the soda pops, right? And there was a moment in time where everybody who was watching the movie just erupted in laughter at the same time. And if you know how our shelter is built, I mean, there's a lot of metal walls. And to hear the laughter like reverberate and hit every wall was just, it was like this experience that just like really moved me, because I was like, this is, because in every sort of lifestyle and living, there's always high points and low points, right? And there's always successes and tragedies. And sometimes our residents experience tragedy and sadness a little bit more than, like the average lifestyle. But yet here we are in a room where all of us together are just like erupting in laughter. That just like really made it for me.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
So birthday parties, movies. I imagine you have not just the community organizations, but individuals in the community that want to support to what's happening here. Who are those people? What are they doing?
I think we're seeing, there's a lot of different terminology and verbiage. Like, what is a safe sleep site? What does it mean to be a low barrier shelter? And I think that initially, because we were so new and there were different, like housing options already, there were the huts and community supported shelter and the mission, and everybody's doing amazing for the niche they're in. And then here comes us and Everyone Village just being like, we're going to let anybody in, regardless if we're not going to check IDs. It's just you show up and you can do the rules. We're going to be there for you, right? And understanding that not everything's going to be a success, but the successes we are going to be so endearing because we're a low barrier shelter. I mean, we've had people who have been on the street for 11 plus years, totally autonomous, and they'll come in. Right, and start working on different things and different processes, never having a front door assessment, never actually. I mean, there was one young man who was here who had been homeless since he was 15 and had never had a job except for 1 week canning beans, right? And Lord knows that's not an easy job. And he got an interview at Jack in the Box, right? And he came up just trembling, how do I present myself? How do I go into this interview? And then he did well in the interview, and they didn't call him because there was a transition of HR directors, and the HR director went on vacation. So he came up and asked Blaze, and Blaze had me do some coaching of this is how you advocate for yourself. This is how you check in with an HR manager. And I mean, from 15 until 20 something now, never having a job and then learning how to advocate. I mean, that's huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think another thing is it's really easy to focus on the failings. He didn't get the job.
Yeah.
But we were able to kind of turn it into a positive, and he went on. I believe he went and got a job at Carl's Jr. Right. So it's not just focusing on those negatives, those failings, those it's not always in your control. Sometimes it's just luck, bad luck, or maybe they had somebody that they preferred or better experience or whatever. But that doesn't mean you need to give up.
Right.
And so that's a big thing is don't give up. We're not going to give up on them. They shouldn't give up on themselves. And I think I try to tell them that a lot.
Yeah, and that's really big because I think a lot of times, individuals, they have a familial unit that supports them, or a faith unit, or a relational unit. And we have some individuals here that are just lone wolves or lone rangers, male or female, or, however they identify. And so there was a gentleman who, he was doing so well. He was going to primary care. He got referred to cardiovascular and some other things. And we were working directly with getting him rides, coordinating rides. And there was one day that his ride didn't show up, so he missed his appointment, right? And he literally was convinced that his specialist would never want to see him again, all of this. And it just took a quick phone call and trying to figure out why the ride never showed up, and it was just a miscommunication and all of this. And so we were able to get that individual back on track, right? And so still in success. But sometimes, when we have crooks in the road, or a split in our path, even with my own self, in not being able to self-advocate very well, if something goes wrong in the way that I see the day is supposed to go, and it goes wrong, I could potentially tank for the rest of the day, right? And Blaze is saying is, even if you might not have gotten that job, or even if you missed that appointment, or you overslept for the day. I mean, we have a guy who's actively working, and he overslept 2 days in a row, and no call, no show at work. But we were able to work with him and coach him, and he talked to his supervisor, and the supervisor gave him another chance, right? And so seeing things like that, and just complete okay, you messed up, dust off, okay, what's next? That's been really exciting to see.
Absolutely. It really speaks to that journey. There's not one thing anyone can do to magically fix their situation. It's a series of steps. But one thing without a support system could take you sideways for a very long time.
Especially in being in this demographic.
Yeah.
It's really easy to feel like one setback will sideline you for permanently. I mean,
Yeah.
So it's important to capture those moments to bring a healthy, positive twist. This is an opportunity for coaching or
Right.
learning.
Right.
That
Right.
next step, building some foundational pieces.
Yeah, and then our staff has every different personality. There's the extroverts and the introverts. There's people who love to listen, and like me, I'm training myself to listen, right? But there's so many different awesome facets to the makeup of our staff that it really seems like if someone doesn't, like if they have a predisposition not to trust a female, we have some great males, or if someone feels threatened by a male, regardless of how nice or, professional they are, and want to come to the females. I mean, we're so well-rounded. I think that that's also, like, the secret sauce in the success is that, everybody has their own skill sets. I mean, like, de-escalation is just on point here. Like, we have some amazing de-escalators. We have some amazing, like, trauma-informed specialists. All of these different, like, components working together as a team just are an amazing benefit.
And you guys are part of an even larger team, which I think in the community, because we're not an island. Of course, we have community partners that help us. If you could mention it, you've mentioned a couple, but who's our team that's coming with us to bat for these individuals?
I think that there's more allies than we even imagine that we have. I mean, we have the ones that we knew, the ones that initially had gone to like Washington Jefferson or 13th and Chambers. Like, we have a pastor in Springfield who used to bring food to Washington Jefferson, who now delivers from Springfield. It's a 20-minute drive to us every Saturday, right? But so we had a veteran here who had a really bad sciatic, like a pinched sciatic nerve, right? And he was about to transition into housing, and he came up to me one day and he's like, man, I would just do anything to go swimming today. He's like, swimming is my therapy, and I can release, and it's what calms me, and it helps my back. And I was thinking to myself, like, where's the pools? Well, I immediately thought, well, the Y, right? And so we gave the Y a call and got connected with their membership team, and they were able to partner with us to work with this veteran to get him into like swimming and all this. And we have another individual who has a very specialized medication, came from out of state, came here, now his medication's out, and just the average bear can't prescribe what he needs, right? The average physician. And so we have two partners working in conjunction with us. The first partner being HIV Alliance, the Alliance, who has a medical street team who will actually drive individuals to their doctor's appointments and make sure they have all, their proof of residence, their ID, all of that. So it's like, we stay here at site. Sometimes our residents have to ride the bus, for 2 hours just to get to their doctor's appointment. Well, the Alliance will help with that. And then Volunteers in Medicine is taking on this. They have, mental health and physical health, as well as a pharmacy within their clinic. And so it's the Safe Sleep Site working with the Alliance, working with Volunteers in Medicine to help this individual. I mean, it's amazing.
It's the village, right?
It's a village.
The village.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And we do truly have a village here in Eugene. I think we are all united in we need to do something. We need to do something. So thinking of the average citizen out there that drives past the street corner, and they haven't had the benefit of developing relationships, having a name to call out, what would your advice be to those folks in the community that have a heart, they want to help, they know just handing money out the window isn't going to solve homelessness, not even for that person? What can we ask them to do?
I think it's tough in one sense that, serving the homeless, it's pretty specialized, right? Like, I know for me, the first day I went to Washington Jefferson, I was scared out of my mind. Like, I didn't sleep that night. And, like, here's, like, Kayla and Michelle and Blaze, and they're just, like if it was a movie, like, the air is going through, and they're just walking, and they wave, and everybody waves back. And I'm, like, in there being like, don't stab me. Don't stab me. Really, I was so scared. And because there was all of these, like... There was all of these things that I believed about homeless, whether it be from a movie or like a music video or like something someone told me or like, bad publicity. And so I was so petrified to walk into Washington Jefferson Bridge and just like interact with someone who is unhoused. And the first person I met was like so nice, and he's like, let me show you my tent, and I have a singing bowl, it will talk to you. And he's like playing a singing bowl, and he's like walking around like this is his beautiful like estate, showing us everything. And I'm like, man, like here I am saying that I want to be a champion of the homeless, and I didn't realize I had so many social biases myself. And so it took a lot to work those out and to like really understand that, okay, not everybody's going to be an angel, right? Like not everybody is here for the common good or genuinely wants to get better, but there is such a core of our community that does. And so, you know, donations, it's tough to come directly to a shelter and give donations. I would say reach out to Chad Drive with St. Vincent de Paul, see if there's ways that you can volunteer. Monetary donations help us greatly because there's so many things that have to be run behind the scenes. If you do want to donate women's sanitary napkins, you know, things that people don't think about are really important. But just educating yourself on like that not everything is harmful or scary, or you know there's other sides to the story.
I'm thinking back to some of your early statements when you were in that urban role of getting to know people. This is a human being.
It's really hard, right? So when I was a kid, seeing a homeless person under a bridge was kind of alarming, you know, to be perfectly honest. And now I'll be driving through town and I'll see a camper on the corner of the street or like in front of somebody's house, and you know it looks not great, and it's hard to tell somebody that, you know, that person, it's not their fault. It's, you know, they're damaging your property, and you know it's fine, but
That's probably not very well received.
no, it's not. But you know, they don't. A lot of them don't know that there's other options. Like I've at my apartment complex, I have people that come and trash our parking lot. You know, they're still camping there right now. And I've gone up to them and I've asked, hey, do you guys know about, you know, St. Vincent de Paul's programs? You know, do you know about Dusk to Dawn, Dawn to Dawn? Do you know about this site? And I'll just ask them, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So it's a information battle, you know? It's what can you do to help them? I mean, talk to them about what their options are. Absolutely. They might not know any better. You know, they're not. I don't think most of them are doing it maliciously or intentionally to bother you or me. You know, I might find it very rude and frustrating, but I get that it's not their prerogative to harass me. It's just tough. It's a stigma that you're constantly going to be fighting it yourself. Like Absolutely. I do it on a daily basis. Like, come on, really? Like, really? You can't just... I don't know. It just feels like I'm fighting a never-ending battle with unreasonableness.
Yeah, but I mean, we see it. I think water is like a really big thing. Like I carry, like in the summertime, I carry a little ice chest with ice and some water bottles. And, you know, some people aren't comfortable with handing money to someone on the street. But every time I'm at a corner, I'll just hand a water bottle out. And, I mean, hydration is so important. Like, whether it's, like, you know, in winter time, I'll carry a couple coats or some socks or a blanket. And if I feel safe, then I will have that exchange. If I don't feel safe, then I will move on and I'll, you know, send up a little prayer or whatever. You know, like, it's however we decide is our comfort level. And I think that on an individual side, I think that just educating, you know, if you feel like volunteering, and even not just with Vinnie's. I mean, there's so many different partners around the community where we are all so integrated. And I think that businesses can play a really key role too. You know, being comfortable with, you know, potential job fairs or like job coaching, or if individuals have, you know, like, well, we were just talking about haircuts or like professional clothing, or, you know, the two biggest things that we see in the community is jobs. And then Blaze was just, what was your name confused? Blaze was just talking about the elderly. And this is like something that people haven't been talking about is how many elderly individuals are homeless right now, nationwide and in the city of Eugene. And we did like an unofficial survey, and I'm looking here, and 29% are either retired on SSI or on disability here in the Safe Sleep Site. And that's not even like what we see out. Like, I went downtown, and I was really having to struggle with unplugging from my work as case manager after work, right? And I went downtown to have sushi, and I just was just gonna, I didn't care. I was gonna spend the rent on some sushi because I wanted some like really good food, right? And as I'm like walking downtown, I saw like 10 different homeless individuals that were like over the age of retirement. I mean, and so that was where my heart was, is really understanding that there's this epidemic here of the boomers, right? And so I don't know what that means with help, but if it's any sort of call to action where anybody knows of some sort of resource or thing that they could do, or funding source or anything, that would be a big help to us.
And we're going to need that for probably another decade plus, as you have those baby boomers aging out. And if you've lived unhoused for any significant percentage, your body's a little bit more worn.
Yeah.
So those end of life, what should be your retirement years support, are going to be growing. The need for that's going to be growing.
It's a very vulnerable community.
Yeah.
I think that any kind of help to some of our supporting agencies and organizations, like if you're helping the Alliance, if you're helping Whitebird, if you're helping, DHS, whoever, it's helping us. It's helping our community.
Got it.
Yeah. We have there's a brand new nonprofit in town, and I'm going to botch the name of it, but it's basically like herbal remedies, right? Like, and they create tinctures and everything's like natural, and they have little zines like what happens with an overdose, and like grief formula and all of these different things, and they give those out to communities for free. So one of the co-founders came to our site because we had someone struggling with massive depression after losing a friend, and they just gave us, like, they opened up their heart and gave us everything that they made, and it was little droplets to just relax, and you think about, like, aromatherapy, like, I spray my pillow at night with lavender, right? Well, what a luxury, and so, like, just whatever it is that's your niche, whether it be clothing or, like, homeopathic remedies, there's some part of the community that's supporting the unhoused that ultimately supports us back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So thinking in terms of what can the individual do, because homelessness is going to be top of mind. We're coming up on winter. We are coming up on winter.
Agreed.
And in our community, I was born and raised here, and I don't remember individuals on street corners when I was growing up. It was, you would expect to see someone under a bridge maybe, but in this last decade, it is in our face. And so the overwhelmedness of that for the community members. So if I can sum up what I believe you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, first there is that self-reflection, your stereotypes, what am I thinking? The humanization of people. That's a human, there's a story, there's a reason. So reaching out if you're in a safe place in some fashion, a smile if you just need to keep on moving. But there is an opportunity, say if someone is every day outside your apartment building or place of business, maybe blocking the doorway, is there an opportunity to meet them? And then educating yourself not just about your stereotypes and homelessness, what are the resources? Because that's the helplessness of the average human being. What do I, one little human, do about this big thing? So educating, do you know about Dawn to Dawn? Do you know about the Safe Sleep Sites? Do you know about the Eugene Mission? And then finding a way to give back in a way that you believe and know is going to have an impact. Be that volunteering for either St. Vincent de Paul or another agency, finding those resources like feminine hygiene products, brand new underwear, bottled water. No one turns down a bottle of water.
Right.
So that if you can smile and hand someone a bottle of water, you have made a human connection in that moment. So supporting that individual by supporting other agencies. And I think you had a really good point, Sarah, which is it can be really hard to come into a shelter environment. The opportunities to volunteer, like what you need to know and learn as a person coming into that environment to be safe and effective, it's a hard learning curve. So it can be hard to find a volunteer opportunity, but I would say St. Vincent de Paul has one of the the best when it comes to winter is we have the Egan Warming Centers. That is
Yeah.
100% volunteer-driven effort that they never have enough volunteers.
Right.
And they open up on those cold nights. Anyone can be a volunteer. There's a role to be had to serve our unhoused on those super, super cold nights. And then, of course, donate financially. I know. But when it comes right down to it, there are a lot of things that we're equipped to do, that you have the experience and know how to do. That funding behind you allows us to open that door, to pay for that ID, to get that doctor's, to put gas in that tank. And you have the wisdom and the discernment to know where to aim that money. Did I miss anything from how they can help?
I mean, if you can't think of anything else and it's outside of your comfort zone, even just, if you see somebody, just ask them, hey, have you heard of these sites you can sign up for? SVdP.us, you can go to the public library or the Eugene service station.
Yeah.
You can sign up to get in here, and then we'll take over,
Right.
If you don't feel like you're the best person to help, then leave it to us.
Yeah.
We got it.
Make that referral. So
Mhm.
educate yourself, and then educate yourself about the resources.
Yeah. I mean, all you really need is their name, and you could sign up for them.
That's right. That's
Get a
right.
contact,
Yeah,
if they have
that's
a
so true.
phone or something.
That's beautiful. Anything else either one of you would like to say?
No, I'm just grateful to be here. I love our team. St. Vinnie's is awesome. But my life has completely changed, right? Like, I'm so much more humble. I came from a very academic background, and, it was really, like, elitist, right? Like, here I am, I have all of this privilege, all of this, and then now I transition into this role, and nothing matters. I don't go to the mall on Saturday just to buy a new pair of shoes because I can't anymore. Like, I'm so much more intentional with my life based on living here. And I've been taught so many more things about life and living. Like, there was this one gentleman that we had, he told me how to, like, starch my clothes and how to, like, actually put seasoning on my meat. And, like, I'm about as plain Jane as can be. And life skills, I wasn't taught. I was super academic. But the amount of things that I've learned back from this community has been such a humbling experience that I know without a shadow of a doubt I made the right choice by being here.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything else, either one of you?
No.
Thank you for sitting down and taking the time to talk today.